And the story of Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiallahu an is truly an underdog story because he's not a strong person physically. He's not a wealthy person. He's not from a well-known tribe. He's just a normal guy. And he becomes this mountain that we're going to start to uncover today. So really, for him, it's someone that we can really look at and say, that is a possibility. I can be just like him. And he didn't start studying Islam from 5 years old. He was the same age as the Prophet ﷺ. So if you're in your 40s, your 50s, your 60s, your 70s, this is something relatable. You know, when you see the child who's, mashallah, hafiz at 4 years old, memorizing Bukhari hadith, you're like, okay, forget about it. I can't compete with that. But this is a man who took shahada in his 40s, and then to see what he became. It's amazing. In addition, it's very relatable to our times of persecution, or at least of fear of persecution that we have right now. We have Muslims in the world that are physically being persecuted, and here in the West we have a fear of persecution. And he was a man who was persecuted physically, psychologically, emotionally, and yet he still persevered. So it's really someone, when I look at, I was very excited to come and talk about him because of his stature, because of what he overcame, because he is a companion. It's something that we can really, really relate to. So inshallah ta'ala, I wanted to add that to your beautiful intentions that you shared with me, that this topic of biographies is something that we really need to dig into. And I think inshallah, as long as Dr. Ahmed keeps inviting me for Fridays, I'm going to keep diving into biographies because it's just so much fun. So I wanted to share with you my sources. So the first source is the gold standard for biographies. Does anyone recognize this book without seeing it? What's the gold standard for biographies, even if you cannot see the book? You should, inshallah, know this, and you won't not know after today. Sorry? That's one, but for biographies specifically, biographies of companions and scholars, there's one gold standard. Sheikh Umar Sulaiman mentions it in all of his YouTube videos. It's this one right here. It's Imam al-Dhahabi, Siyar A'lam al-Nubala. Siyar A'lam al-Nubala. It's about a 20-volume set. It's huge. And in it he covers the biographies of hundreds and hundreds of people. Not just companions, not just tabi'een, but great poets, great leaders, great historians, everyone. So that's my primary source. My secondary source, so this is in Arabic, and I don't speak Arabic, but I fight with my dictionary to get through the Arabic over here. Alhamdulillah, it is feasible. I just want to crack that for you guys as well. For the non-Arab speakers, you can dig into an Arabic book. You just grind and grind and grind, and inshallah you'll get gems. For those that want something more attainable, inshallah, this is a book by Ibn al-Jawzi, which is called Sifat al-Safwa, The Ranks of the Elite. This is in English. So he wrote a 2-volume book in Arabic, which is currently being translated into English, and this is volume 1, and it's by Dar Sunnah. And Dar Sunnah is a publication that, mashallah, they do beautiful, beautiful books. So this is volume 1, and guess how many biographies are in here? Just by the look, how many do you think? How many biographies do you think are in here? Sorry? 4? No, a little more, a little more. This is 120. 120. Yeah, just one. So there's 3 more coming. So this is a topic that's, it's not like nothing against fiqh, nothing against usul, nothing against tafsir. Those are very deep, important topics, but biography is something you could just sit back on a Friday afternoon and just enjoy it. So I love this topic of biographies. Those are my primary sources, as well as a cartoon that I watch with my son. All right. So let's jump in, inshallah. So Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, ibn Ghafil, ibn Habib, ibn Shamkhi, ibn Far, ibn Makhzum, ibn Sahilat, ibn Kahil, ibn Harith, ibn Taymi, ibn Sa'ad, ibn Huthail, ibn Mudraka, ibn Ilyas, ibn Mudar, ibn Nizal. That's a mouthful. Now, what's the benefit of that? The benefit of that is that when we study our people in Islam, we know who they are. They're not ominous characters. It's not John, Matthew. You know what I'm saying? We know who the person is. We can trace their lineage. These are real people that existed. So that's the point of when you read a biography, you always look at the full name, and then you can pick out some gems from the name as well. So from among the gems within this lineage is the name Huthail. And Banu Hudayl was a tribe back in the day that was known for its eloquence and its poetic tradition. Among his lineage as well is Mudraka ibn Ilyas. And Mudraka ibn Ilyas is also in the lineage of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So that would make Ibn Mas'ud and the Prophet sallam fifth cousins or sixth cousins, distant relatives, but nonetheless they share a common source at Mudraka ibn Ilyas. And then Ilyas ibn Mudar, he was known to be a monotheist during his time. He was against idolatry. So within the lineage of Ibn Mas'ud is a monotheist, perhaps a Hanif of his time. Just like how the Prophet was Hanif before he received the revelation. And then Mudar, back in the day, it was a powerful northern Arab tribe, but by the time it came to Ibn Mas'ud's time and you have tribes and sub-tribes, he was no longer part of a tribe that could protect him. Thus, when he took Shahada, he was physically attacked because he wasn't part of one of the more popular or powerful tribes of Quraysh. So that's the lineage of Ibn Mas'ud, and that's how every single biography begins. So let's jump into a story before we go to further details. So one day, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and Abu Bakr radiallahu an, they were walking, and they became thirsty, and they saw a young man taking care of a flock of sheep. So the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he came and he said, Ya ghulam, he said, oh young boy, do you have any milk that we can take? And the man said, I cannot give you what I don't own. I'm just entrusted to take care of these sheep. And so the Prophet ﷺ said, do you have a sheep that has not yet mated? He said, yes. And so this man brought the sheep forward, and the Prophet ﷺ took his blessed hand and put it over the udder of the sheep, and it became full with milk. Became full with milk. And then this man went and brought a very humble cup made from stone and gave it to the Prophet ﷺ. Pay attention to all these details, very important. It's not just a story, everything has importance. He came with this stone cup and gave it to the Prophet ﷺ, and then the Prophet ﷺ was able to milk the sheep and enjoy the milk. And then the Prophet ﷺ wiped his hand once again, and the udder retracted. And then the man said to the Prophet ﷺ after he saw this miracle, and he saw how the Prophet was making dua to make this happen, he said, teach me something from this kalam. Teach me something from this speech. And the Prophet ﷺ said, may Allah have mercy upon you. You're a boy who will be taught. You will be mu'allim. You will be mu'allim. So who is this man? This was Ibn Mas'ud radiallahu anh. And after this incident, he took a shahada. You know, like when you meet a revert, yo, tell me your story. How'd you convert to Islam? Every Sahaba has a revert story, right? That's his story. And then he went home, and his mother took Shahada, and his brother took Shahada. But let's go back a little bit now. The Prophet ﷺ, first of all, when he asked him for the milk, it was almost like a mini test, because the man showed that he had nobility. He had trustworthiness, that he wasn't going to just give this milk. I mean, how would the owner know? He wouldn't know. He could just be a nice guy and build his street credit. I'm the guy you can go to if you need help. He said, no, I can't give you what's not mine. So it showed that he was trustworthy. In addition, this bringing of this stone cup ends up being a foreshadowing, because Ibn Mas'ud becomes a servant, a loving servant of the Prophet ﷺ later on, taking care of his belongings. In addition, the Prophet ﷺ said, you will be taught. He said it in the past tense, madi. And those who have been taking the classes with me, when there's a past tense, what does that mean? It's definitely going to happen. When the past tense is used for something in the future, it means it's definitely going to happen. It's guaranteed. So all of this from this one incident, Ibn Mas'ud, his character is seen, some interesting foreshadowing is happening, and he accepts Islam. And it also begs the question of qadr. I was reflecting upon this. It begs the question of qadr, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala willed that at that moment, the Prophet ﷺ and Abu Bakr would be thirsty. Right? And at that moment, he would pass the sheep being taken care of by Ibn Mas'ud. And at that moment, he would do this miracle, and this man would get this amazing experience that he would never forget, that would plant a seed in his heart and a thirst for knowledge that would never end. This is the qadr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Sometimes you wonder, why do things happen? Look at this right here. It's a manifestation of the qadr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this is Ibn Mas'ud. We now go into a number of his titles that he's given. And these titles are laid out. By the way, the story that we just mentioned is from Ibn Ishaq. So the beauty of going through these classical books is they're also quoting classical books. So the story of the Prophet ﷺ meeting him when he was a shepherd, that's reported in Ibn Ishaq, in the famous Sirah books. Now we come to his titles. So after mentioning his name, Imam al-Dhahabi then goes into these beautiful titles. And we're going to take some time to enjoy these. So the first title he's given is Al-Imam Al-Habr. Imam Al-Habr. Imam Al-Habr literally means the scholar of ink, or the leader of ink. And this refers to the fact that he is a great scholar and a learned person. Meaning, ink is where you dip your pen back in the day and then you write. So he is that fountain of ink from which everyone gains knowledge and everyone sources their knowledge. So it's giving the implication that he's a great leader, imam, and a master scholar, Al-Habr, ink. A beautiful title, Imam Al-Habr. Imam al-Dhahabi, when he mentions these titles that we're going to talk about today, he doesn't just throw these out, like out of nowhere. They're not willy-nilly. Every single title we're about to go through is pinpointed and chosen to highlight the beautiful character and qualities of the individual person being discussed. And so, as this title of Imam Al-Habr, we will look at all the knowledge that he gave. Not just his knowledge of Quran, which he's well known for, but so much more as well. And Ibn Mas'ud, he was one who he used to give fatwa during the time of the Prophet ﷺ and after his time. He was one that was deeply involved in tafsir and fiqh and zuhud, spirituality, and he was a leader in Kufa where he later went to establish the deen and establish a deen based upon knowledge. Now this title, Imam Al-Habr, I was curious, did anyone else get this title? So who would you think would be given this title? Just take a wild guess. Among the companions. Who else is just mind-boggling huge in terms of education, influence, and leadership? Take a guess. Imam Ali? Not in this case. Not in this case, but perhaps inshallah other cases. Another fountain of knowledge. One more guess. Sisters. No problem. So the other companion that's given this title is Ibn Abbas, radiallahu an. And we know he was a fountain of knowledge for the Quran. So Ibn Mas'ud is given this title as well as Ibn Abbas, radiallahu an. The next title, and we're coming straight from the book, the next title is Faqih al-Ummah. Faqih al-Ummah. It's the second title that he's given. This means literally the jurist of the Ummah. You go to your sheikh, you ask him a fiqh question, I'm traveling and I'm going to be on the plane and how do I combine my prayers? Or sheikh, I'm going to be traveling in Ramadan for 30 days, what do I do? Do I just not fast this month? Fiqh. He's the Faqih al-Ummah. Umar radiallahu anh recognized how skilled he was in fiqh, so he appointed him as teacher in Kufa. And by the way, when Umar radiallahu anh picks someone, he's not, he's not going to pick someone that's weak. He's going to pick the best person for the job. During the time of Umar ibn al-Khattab radiallahu anh, he was so strict with hadith. This is when the hadith started to get collected. This is why Muawiyah radiallahu anh, later on in Syria, he said, when you narrate hadith, only narrate hadith during the time of Umar, because the people were scared to say anything wrong. So Umar radiallahu anh chose him to go to a foreign land and teach Islam. That enough validates this is someone who we need to know, someone we can trust and honor. So he was Faqih al-Ummah. And among his students of fiqh were the great tabi'een like Alqamah, like Masruq and Ibrahim al-Nakhai. He traveled with the Prophet ﷺ, and that's how he was able to gain so much fiqh. He used to travel with the Prophet in the wilderness. He used to travel to him on excursions. He used to travel with him all the time. He was one of the few people. The Prophet ﷺ said, you don't have to knock to enter my home. He had a special privilege that no one else had. And this is important, we're going to talk about this later on if time permits. So he had access to the Prophet ﷺ to gain this knowledge of fiqh. Fiqh means deep understanding. It means deep understanding. Fiqh is much greater than fahm. Like sometimes if you're sitting in a class, I know I've sat in classes and the shaykh will say, fahimt, you understand, right? Fahm is when you look at the sky and you see clouds. You look at the sky, you see clouds, that's fahm, you understand, you can see, you can observe. But fiqh is to know how the clouds are formed and the different types of clouds there are and the impact they have and the whole water cycle. That's fiqh. It's not just, pretty clouds, right? So when we say faqih al-ummah, it means this is a man with understanding of this deen that he leads the entire ummah. Anyone Hanafi in the crowd? Where are my Hanafis at? No Hanafis? They're too shy. That's okay. Ibn Mas'ud, for those who study the Hanafi madhab, their chains go back to him. When you study from Abu Hanifa, rahimahullah, you study from him, and he studied from Hamad ibn Abi Sulaiman, who studied from Ibrahim al-Naqi, who studied from Alqama, who studied from Ibn Mas'ud radiallahu anh. All of the Hanafi fiqh that we have today, it's coming directly through this. This is like the golden chain of Hanafi fiqh. Ibn Mas'ud to Alqama to Ibrahim al-Nakhai to Hamad ibn Abi Sulaiman to Abu Hanifa al-Nu'man rahimahullah. So he is the father of the Hanafi school. And he's the earliest example among the companions of one who's doing deep legal thinking. That's what he's known for. You look in the seerah, you'll see he's the one that's really calculating and thinking and measuring. So he's really unique in that way, and this is why he's given the title Faqih al-Ummah. Other titles he had was Al-Makki. And Al-Makki, when you first hear it, you might think, okay, that just means he's from Makkah. Or that just means he's born in Makkah. But it's not that. This is not just a normal nisbah, like a normal title that's given. Al-Makki indicates many, many deep things. It means that he was among the early Muslims to convert. And in fact, in Imam Zahawi's book, he mentions that he was approximately the 6th or the 7th to take Shahada. So when we say Al-Makki, it means he's from the early senior companions. It also means that he witnessed early persecution. Because in the first half of the Meccan period, intense persecution. Up through the end, it never really stopped, right? So he's part of that time period. It also means that he had direct and early exposure to the Quran. Obviously, when the Prophet ﷺ leaves this world, he has 100,000 companions. Not all of them had direct access to the Quran as it was coming down. Ibn Mas'ud, being Al-Makki, he did. He had that special relationship with the Quran. Of course, he would have been an early companion. And this also means that he served the Prophet ﷺ when it was the hardest thing to do on the planet. That was the hardest job to have on the planet in the 7th century. To be one of his followers, to face persecution, to stand by him. So that title, Al-Makki, it represents that fortitude that he must have had to survive during that period. Because people waited till later. No less, we don't look down on companions, but there are companions who, they didn't want to have Islam in Makkah. They waited until Fath al-Makkah. Then they took their Shahada, right? The same people in Makkah waited until the 22nd year of the Seerah, and then they took their Shahada. It's still accepted. They had their own limits and capacities. But this man, having no protection in terms of tribe, having no wealth, having no status, takes his Shahada. So he's worthy of this title, Al-Makki. The next title he's given is Al-Muhajir. Al-Muhajir. Why is he given the title Al-Muhajir? Because he didn't just do Hijrah once. He didn't just do Hijrah twice. He did Hijrah 3 times. Fi sabilillah. Imagine you had to leave your home in Bridgewater or Basking Ridge right now. Leave it, not sell it. Leave it. And go live somewhere else in decrepit situations. And hope you meet someone that has a big enough house that you could split half of it. It's not easy. It's like a dreamland when I even say this. Like, what are you talking about, brother? This is what the companions had to do. They had to ditch their homes. So he left not once for Abyssinia, but twice. And of course, he made the third and final hijrah to Medina. And the muhajir as a title, again, it's not simply a label, someone who moved 3 times. What does it represent? What is the significance? The significance is, this is a man who's willing to sacrifice for the deen. The world means nothing. It's Allah and His Messenger that's top of mind. And the one who does hijrah, it represents true sincerity, that they value this deen and what Allah says and what the Messenger says more than anything else. 3 times he picked up and moved. Some Muslims we know, they went to Abyssinia, they never came back. They just settled, they're like, all right, I'm good here. Alhamdulillah. And that's fine. Not putting them down. But this man moved around 3 times. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Surah Tawbah, chapter 9, verse 100, He says about as-sabiqun al-awwalun min al-muhajirin wal-ansar, that the muhajirun, they have this special title, that they are the first and the foremost in chasing down good deeds. And so this title of muhajir is very important. And then the next title Imam Dhahabi points out is al-Badri. Al-Badri, as you can assume, means he fought in Badr, right? Pretty straight. But it's going to come again in a few minutes. So in general, those that fought in Badr, when you read the books of biography, it'll say Al-Badri, right? Meaning obviously that they fought in Badr. And we know that the Prophet told us, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us in Sahih Muslim, that Allah looked at the people of Badr and said, do as you wish, for I have forgiven you. Allah said regarding the people of Badr, do whatever you want, I have forgiven you. Are they going to do whatever they want? Are they going to go and start drinking alcohol and being promiscuous? No, of course not. But it just shows like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, just how much He's pleased with them. So this title, Al-Badri, when we read it in the books of biography, it is a high title of prestige and honor. It's a very, very high title. And I'll come to this more in a few minutes actually, so just keep that in mind, we'll come back to it. In addition to these like big titles that he's given, Ibn al-Jawzi mentions additional titles in his book, that the Prophet, Ibn Mas'ud is also called, for example, Sahaba Siwak, the companion of the Siwak. Why? Because he was the one who used to go and get the Siwak for the Prophet ﷺ. And of course we know that famous story about the Siwak tree, which we're going to come to in a few minutes inshallah. So he was called the Sahaba as-Siwak, because he used to be in charge of getting the Siwak for the Prophet ﷺ. But he also used to be called the Sahaba of secrets, that the Prophet ﷺ used to tell him that he didn't tell anyone else. He used to be called the Sahaba of the cushion, because he used to carry the cushion for the Prophet ﷺ for his animal. He used to be called the Sahaba of the shoes, because he used to carry the chappals, the shoes of the Prophet ﷺ. He used to be called the Sahaba of the water, because he used to go and bring water for the Prophet when he had to make wudu. And he used to hold up a towel or a sheet when the Prophet used to bathe. This is the man we're talking about. And this is just the beginning. By the way, this is just part 1. We're not finishing this tonight. Full transparency, Ibn Mas'ud is covered in this book over here, 24 pages. I only got through 4. It's extremely deep. So I don't know how far we're going to get, but that's all I got through. And that's, alhamdulillah, a little bit of hours I put in there. So these titles and these labels that he has, these are not just labels. These are indications of his rank. These are indications of his spiritual status. And it also tells us just how close he was to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So after these initial titles, Imam al-Dhahabi then goes and gives these broader, even larger titles. Like those are just the introductory titles. Now come some really big ones. So he says over here, "Kana min as-sabiqun al-awwalun." He was from the sabiqun al-awwalun. And may Allah make us from amongst them. On the Day of Judgment, there'll be 3 groups, right? The people on the right, the people on the left, and then as-sabiqun al-awwalun. Those that don't waste time when it comes to doing good deeds. They don't waste time when it comes to serving the deen. It's time for a fundraiser, it's time for a protest, it's time to build our school, right? We don't waste time. I'm there, what do you need? I'll do my best. I'm here. Just tell me what to do. As-sabiqun al-awwalun. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks to them again, as you mentioned, in Surah At-Tawbah. So why is he given this title? Because he was among the first to accept Islam. Among the first, number 6 approximately. He was alive during that stage of persecution. In addition, and I'm going to try to find the exact quote if I can. Oh, here we go. Over here, Imam Dahabi tells us, أول من جهر بالقرآن بمكة بعد رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. He was the first to, over here, Jahra, he was the first to make the Quran apparent. Meaning, he was the first to read the Quran out loud. The companions were circling around one day, and they're like, man, we can't recite the Quran in public. We're going to get beat up. These Makkans don't like us. He's like, I'll do it. And he was the smallest, and perhaps the weakest physically. He said, I'll do it. He went out, he recited the Quran, and it enraged the Quraysh. And they came and they slapped him on his face. And he didn't stop reading. He didn't stop reading. He kept reading. And they kept slapping him. And he kept reading until he passed out. And he had to be taken away. And there's blood streaming from his face. And then he told the companions, I told you, no one can stop you from reciting the Quran if Allah wills. So he was the first, as Imam Dahabi says, أول من جهر بالقرآن بمكة بعد رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. He was the first to recite the Quran publicly after the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم. In addition, أول من قرأ آيات عن ظهر قلبي. عن ظهر قلبي. He was the first to recite the Quran from heart. Meaning he was the first to memorize the Quran. He was the first to memorize the Quran. And Ibn Masud tells us over here, he says, I memorized 70 chapters of the Quran directly from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now the number 70, you guys know that's a little indicator, right? 70 can mean the whole thing, right? Like when the Prophet tells there's 73 sects, it doesn't mean exactly 73, it means a whole lot of sects. Obviously there's more than that. So he was the first to recite the Quran publicly. He was the first to memorize the Quran and recite it from heart. He participated in Badr and Uhud. He didn't hold back. He's a model for the ummah to follow. And so this title, As-Sabiqun al-Awwalun, it means that he's chosen, he's tested, and he's proven. That's what As-Sabiqun al-Awwalun mean. It doesn't just mean you're like excited the first day and then you leave and you ditch. No, you're committed. It shows his spiritual sincerity and seniority. So that's one of the first big titles that Imam al-Dhahabi gives to Ibn Mas'ud radiallahu anhu. By the time, what time are we done? I don't think we should go to Aisha. That'll be too long. But we'll see how it goes, inshallah. Just give me a 5-minute warning or something. The next title that Imam al-Dhahabi gives is وَمِنَن نُجَبَاءِ الْعَالَمِينَ. This one tripped me out. وَمِنَن نُجَبَاءِ الْعَالَمِينَ. So let's break that down. The second word we know, alamin. What does alamin mean? Worlds, right? Rabbul Alameen, Surah Al-Fatiha. All the worlds. Nujaba is plural for the word Najib. You might have a friend named Najib. Najib means noble, right? Of good honor and respect and dignity. Najib. It means like noble in the simplest way, right? So somebody who's honorable, someone who's pleasant, and someone who's truly like trustworthy, and someone you should really look up to. So Imam al-Dhahabi puts together this phrase, Min an-nujaba il-alamin. He's from among the most noblest people of all the worlds. That's what it means literally. So what is he trying to convey here? First of all, this is a title of really deep honor, and it's a very rare title that's used. Nujaba il-alamin. And it's a very distinguished title, which shows that he's not just a great companion, and this is really the point. He's not just a great companion. He is among the most distinguished personalities in all of human history. He's from among the most distinguished personalities in all of human history, minus the prophets, right? So you put the prophets on one side, you put all of mankind, he's there at the top of that list for all time. You feel how heavy that is? When you think of you might think of Elon Musk, you might think of Einstein, you might think of Descartes, you might think of Socrates, and what did they do? They excelled in one area. But look at what comes next now. Actually, a couple down, but I'm going to jump around a little bit just for the flow. Actually, I'll come back to that, inshallah. Hold that thought. Why is he given this title, Nujaba al-Alameen? We'll come to that in a second. Let's stick with the order that Imam Dhahabi puts. The next larger title he gives is Shahida Badran. Shahidan Badran. He witnessed Badr. Why is that mentioned again? So typically, like in the Quran, right, things are repeated so that you don't forget them. Things are repeated to draw your attention even closer. And you find this, alhamdulillah, in poetry, you find this in classical books that they'll try to mimic what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does to us in the Quran. So now there's repetition here. So why is there repetition? Because Imam al-Dhahabi wants you to know that he was not someone that just attended Badr. He was an active participant. And we know what he did there. We'll talk about that more later, inshallah. So the repetition here is to make sure that as students, we don't forget this important and pivotal moment for Islam. The 300 that fought at Badr, without them there is no Islam. Those were the bravest people on the planet. They escaped by the skin of their teeth, leaving Makkah, leaving all their possessions behind to go to Medina to find a new home. They escaped, they fled. Then the people in Makkah, they start to connive and they say, listen, this is not a good idea, we got to wipe these people out. It's too much. So they gather an army of 1,000 against 300. I mean, we all know the story of Badr, but just it really internalized that. And now Ibn Mas'ud, even given his short stature, he's there at the forefront at Badr. So he gets a special title, Shahida Badran. He was an active participant at Badr. Another important point of re-emphasizing the fact that he's affiliated with Badr is that in the world of testimony and hadith reliability, anyone who was at Badr is given a higher status. So later on in the Muslim world, just imagine it practically. It's not a technical point. Imagine it practically, right? The person who was here at the beginning of the founding of this masjid, when they walk in the door, everyone looks at them differently, right? It's just normal. When a person from Badr shows up in a situation where a testimony is needed, like, let's hear what Ibn Mas'ud has to say. So everyone who participated at Badr always had a higher rank in terms of relying upon them as an eyewitness testimony. And of course in hadith reliability. I mean, companions in general we accept, but those that went to Badr, they get a special care because they were there at the very, very beginning fighting for this deen. The next title that Imam al-Dhahabi gives is Al-Hijratain. And again, he emphasizes this even though he already said Al-Muhajir previously. He emphasizes it again because this is no small deal. Leaving all of your wealth behind, leaving your friends behind, sometimes leaving your family behind, only for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So again, being given the title of Al-Hijratain, it's a proof of his early commitment to Islam. The fact that he made the hijrah twice. It's twice because it's Abyssinia and Medina, even though Abyssinia technically is 2 times in and of itself. Then, what's also called out here is an interesting title, which is, it says here, وَكَانَ يَوْمَ الْيَرْمُوكِ عَلَى النَّفْلِ. At the battle of Yarmouk, he was in charge of the Nafil. Now this is very interesting. So the battle of Yarmouk, which occurred in 636 CE, was an important battle for the Muslims. It was a major battle where they went up against the Byzantines, the Romans. And they were able to crush their power in the Arabian Peninsula. They had one last stronghold in Syria. And they were able to break through with the help of Khalid ibn Walid, radiallahu anhu. So Khalid ibn Walid, during this particular battle, he used his military prowess, and he had this very interesting idea where he would fake retreat. He would fake a retreat, which would throw the opponent off guard, and then there would be an ambush coming around the side. So Khalid ibn Walid, with his military prowess, the Muslims were able to expel the Byzantines from the Levant. And this marked the start of the rule of Muslims in the area of the Levant. And by the way, it was about 30,000 Muslims against 100,000 Byzantine. So in the battles in general now, what happens is that there's always going to be spoils of war. It's always going to be spoils. We have an entire surah in the Quran, it's Surah Al-Anfal. There's always going to be spoils of war. However, within the spoils of war is something really cool called a nafl. What does nafl mean? We're the Hanafis. Come on, you guys are sleeping on me. We're the Hanafis. What's nafl mean? Sorry? Nafl. No, nafl, like nafl prayer. Yeah. Extra. Perfect. My fault. Nafl. Noon fa lam. So let's take a pause there and come to salah for a second. So what's the point of nafl prayer? Yeah. What's the purpose? Fix anything missing? Yes? Perfect, yeah. Anything else? Why else would you be motivated to just do nafil randomly during the day when you're at home? Get more reward, exactly. To get more reward, you do nafil prayer. It's a special relationship you're gaining with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We have the hadith in the 40 of Imam Nawawi that nothing draws you closer to Allah except the obligatory prayers, right? But also if you want to get even closer to Allah and become His wali, you do nafil. Nafil is the hidden key. May Allah make us from among the people that do nafil. So over here, Bismillah. Naam. Naam. So the brothers are reminding us that the nafil prayer is very important because if we're missing anything in our fard prayer, in the obligatory, then this fills it in. Jazakallah khair. Barakallah feek. So the nafil in terms of spoils of war is a special spoils of war for a special group of people that did something extra. Nafil prayer is an extra prayer. You get extra reward, extra special from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Over here, nafil in military combat or in the spoils of war is for specifically people that did something extra, including, but not limited to, the first group of people to penetrate the enemy lines. This is like gangster stuff, man. The first group of people to penetrate the enemy lines, they become qualified for a nafil. In addition, those who capture the flag, I used to thought that was just a game. Those who capture the flag, they qualify for a nafil. Those that recover strategic items, a map, a military plan, something that really crushes the enemy, they can receive a nafil. So now, you got these people that are overachievers, right? Umar radiallahu anh doesn't want to deal with them. So he says to Ibn Mas'ud, you're in charge of giving out the nafil to these people. And this, it's kind of funny, but it's also a sign of his intelligence. That he has the fiqh al-ummah, right? He has the ability to figure out who actually deserves what from the nafil based upon what they were able to achieve. So it shows he has this amazing administrative caliber. He's able to work well under pressure. And he's able to operate in a way that everyone will feel like, okay, that was fair. I got what I deserved. So that's like fiqh in action. That Umar radiallahu anh appointed him in charge of the nafil on the day of Yarmouk. So Imam Dahabi highlights that over here to show and highlight his character. All right, now we come to the fun one. The last title, is this the last title? No, there's one more after this. The second to last title that he's given, radiallahu anh, is Manaqib. Let me read it over here. Manaqibuhu Ghazira. Manaqibuhu Ghazira. Manaqib means virtues or merits or distinguished qualities. And Ghazira means abundant or many. So you throw it together and it means an abundance of amazing virtues. I tried to think of an English word, and the only one that can come to mind is like a polymath, like one who's good at a lot of things, right? But it really doesn't feel like it really hits it. We're just going to stick with the term manaqib ghazira, and if you haven't heard those two words together before, inshallah memorize them. Manaqib ghazira. Manaqib or virtues, ghazira means a lot. Now, let's see who can recap. Tell me, what are some of the things that Ibn Mas'ud is good at? Give me a list of like things he can do. And I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 on my list. So let's see how many you guys get. Knowledge of Quran is good. That's fahm of Quran. So that's 1. What else? Sorry? Hadith. Actually, I didn't have that on mind. That's actually a good point. Yeah, hadith. So that's 9. Jazakallah khair. What else? Recitation of Quran. He was a qari. Yep, good. What else? Mujahid. He was a warrior. Good. Sorry? Fiqh. He was a faqih. Good. What else? Hafiz. Yes. Within Quran. Yes. Good. Excellent. I think we got most of them. So I'm going to run through my list just to make sure we recap. So he was an alim. He was a scholar. He was a mujahid, a warrior. He was a faqih, a jurist. He was a qari, a reciter of the Quran, and of course tafsir of Quran as well. He was an imam, a leader, someone you could turn to, and he led all the people in Kufa, right? And of course his understanding of Quran. And one more, which is not well known, he was also a zahid. He was an ascetic. He was not focused on this world. And there's many quotes from him that we're going to bring next time, inshallah, that covers that. So this is just like mind-blowing now, right? Like in your life, if you can just have an alim in your phone that you can contact when you have questions, you're lucky, right? Just to find an alim, someone you can really depend upon. That's one thing. But then the alim might not necessarily be a good imam. He may not be the person to lead al-falah to the next level. We gotta raise challenges to each other. We have some big shoes to fill in terms of these legacies. But the alim, who is also perhaps an imam, is he good at reciting Quran? Do I like standing behind him when he recites the Quran? And on top of that, is he physically fit? If we have to break out and defend ourselves right now, can he get in the forefront and defend us? Would he intimidate the enemy when he stands? And then on top of that, is he a zahid? Or is he just obsessed with this world and collecting things? Like, do you see? This is overwhelming. So again, he's a scholar, he's a warrior, he's a jurist, he's a reciter, he's an ascetic, he's a leader, alim, sahaba, mujahid, faqih, qari, zahid, imam, and so much more. So much more, all in one human being who is not a prophet. So this title, Manaqib Ghazira, is just mind-blowing. It's a title that's rarely used to highlight someone that is extremely high in their character, sound in their beliefs, aqidah, superior in their knowledge, and one who is accepted by the entire ummah. No one can deny Ibn Mas'ud radiallahu an. Yes? It's Imam Dahabi. It's his own work. This is what he's known for. He's known for writing these biographies and coming up with appropriate titles for people. I mean, like I said, I've only accessed 2 so far. No, he might have. These are just 2 examples. There's many more books of biography. Maybe this term is predated in another book and he borrowed it. I don't know. Allahu alam. But from the little I could see, he's being very specific in the titles he gives people to highlight what makes them unique and special. Wallahu alam. Yes? Of course, we'll come to that. Of course, yeah, definitely. And the last title here that he's given, or description rather, is Rawa ilman kathiran, which means he narrated a lot of knowledge. So he didn't just acquire knowledge from the Prophet ﷺ, he transmitted that knowledge. And being able to take in knowledge and then share it, of course, that's a skill set by itself. So he taught, explained, and passed down the fiqh that he learned from the Prophet ﷺ, the tafsir that he learned, the hadith that he learned, and he stands out in this regard. Again, the Hanafi madhab goes back to him. It goes back to him, not any other companion. And so Ibn Mas'ud, he becomes a bridge between the Prophet ﷺ and all of our later scholars. When I say later, I mean even just like the tabi'een and the tabi'een. He becomes that bridge that everyone must cross to access the Prophet ﷺ, to access his fiqh, to access his understanding of the Quran. And his narrations appear every single where. Now let's talk about his students. Among his students, Imam Dhahabi does something very interesting. He only lists 8 companions by name. So I want you to think about that for a second. He mentions Abu Musa al-Ashari. He mentions Abu Huraira, Ibn Abbas, Ibn Umar, Imran ibn Hussein, Jabir ibn Abdullah, Anas ibn Malik, and Abu Umama radiallahu anhum. And after mentioning all these names, he says, في طائفة من الصحابي من الصحابة. A group from the companions. This is just a subset really. So there's many more companions. So why did he pick these 8? He picked these 8 because each of these 8 became leaders in entire spheres of knowledge. Leaders in entire spheres of knowledge. So when he mentions Abu Musa al-Ashari, what is he known for? The companion of the Prophet ﷺ. What is he known for? Abu Musa al-Ashari. What is he known for? He's known for his Quran. His recitation of the Quran, the Prophet ﷺ said, was so beautiful. Who's his teacher? Ibn Mas'ud. Abu Huraira radiallahu an, what is he known for? Hadith. Who's his teacher? Ibn Mas'ud radiallahu an. Ibn Abbas radiallahu an, we mentioned him already. He's known for tafsir. Who did he learn from? Ibn Mas'ud radiallahu an. Ibn Umar is known for his fiqh. Who was his teacher? Ibn Mas'ud. Imran ibn Hussein, not a well-known companion. Maybe inshallah we'll cover him one day. He's known for his zuhd. Who did he learn that from? Ibn Mas'ud. Jabir ibn Abdullah radiallahu an, also known for his fiqh, but in a more detailed manner. As you mentioned in our class on Tuesdays, right? Jabir was known for narrating very long hadith. Who's his teacher? Ibn Mas'ud. Anas ibn Malik, he was one who used to be like the validator. When people want to just check something, they would talk to Anas ibn Malik. Is that true, Anas? Be like, yeah, it's true. He used to be like the validator. You want to check something and cross-check, you want to fact-check, you go to Anas. Who's his teacher, right? And then lastly, Abu Umama also was known for his zuhd. And then after that, Imam Dhahabi mentions a number of the tabi'een, and I will not read all those names and bore you, inshallah. So what Imam Dhahabi is trying to do here by highlighting these companions is to highlight the influence of Ibn Mas'ud in the area of tafsir, in the area of fiqh, in the area of hadith, in the area of zuhd. But also there's a bonus. These 8 companions ended up going to different parts of the Muslim world. Those among them are 3 that stayed in Hijaz, stayed in Makkah, Medina, and that's Ibn Umar, Ibn Abbas, and Anas ibn Malik radiallahu anhum. But 2 of them go east to Iraq, Abu Musa al-Ashri and Abu Umama. And 2 of them go north to Syria, and that's Imran ibn Hussein and Abu Umama. So over here we can see that these students, they don't just span so many areas. Like just imagine you had a local sheikh in New Jersey, and one person said, man, I go to him and because he specializes in qira'at. Another person says, yeah, man, I go to him because he specializes in the Muwatta of Imam Malik. Yeah, man, I go to him because he gives the best like heart-softening talks that just make you want to cancel your Amazon account. You know, like and it's the same person, right? This is Ibn Mas'ud. And then the barakah of his knowledge, it spreads far and wide, north and east, because those are basically the main 2 directions. Those are where his students spread to and went to. So what's basically being tried to show here is that he's a pillar of our ummah when it comes to knowledge. Sure. It's a good question. I have to think about that. Allahu Alam. That's a good question. I don't know. I have to think about that. Yeah. Naam. Yeah, we'll get back to you. We'll get back to you, inshallah. It's a good question. That's like a deep scholarly question. I have to go ask someone else. Then Imam Dhahabi mentions some reciters of Quran, and I'm going to share two names with you. And at this point, you're like, man, this is kind of interesting. Why are we mentioning so many names? But there's a point here. Hold with me for one more minute on this particular point. So Imam Dhahabi now mentions those that recited Quran from him, and he only mentions two names. He mentions Abdurrahman as-Sulami, who died in 74 AH. And he is the most famous student of Ibn Mas'ud when it comes to Quran. So if you're a specialist in Quran or you want to be a specialist in Quran, you must know Abu Abdurrahman as-Sulami. He taught in Kufa, Iraq for decades. And for all of us who recite the Quran in Hafs, all of us, right? I don't think anyone know Qiraat over here, maybe some Warsh. But for the majority of us who recite the Quran in Hafs, Maliki Yawmiddin instead of Maliki Yawmiddin, right? Our Hafs recitation comes through him. He's in that chain. Inshallah ta'ala, you ever finish memorizing the Quran and you get your ijazah, it's going to go through Abdurrahman as-Sulami, because he was the chief narrator of the Hafs. And he said, I recited the Quran to Ibn Mas'ud, and he would stop me after every single verse and explain it. So it's not just Qari, Hafiz Shab, mashallah. No, it's understanding as well. Now Imam Dhahabi does something very interesting. He mentions this top tier Quran teacher, Abu Abdurrahman as-Sulami, and then he mentions another man, Ubayd ibn Nudayla. And Ubayd ibn Nudayla, nobody knows him, except very few. So why did Imam Dhahabi do that? Because part of this, inshallah ta'ala, the Halaqa is not only to talk about Ibn Mas'ud, but to help us to increase in our critical thinking. So let's try to apply some critical thinking. I know it's the end of the week, we had a long work week. But why would Imam Dhahabi mention in this section over here on reciters of the Quran who studied with Ibn Mas'ud, why would he mention a so-called nobody? Why would he do that? Why would he bring a name that people would be like, who's that? Oh yeah, we know him, he's kind of like there a little bit. Why would he do that? Exactly. Because he taught so many people, his knowledge reached everyone. Jazakallah khair. It shows the breadth of scope that he covered when he taught. That knowledge, it's not an ivory tower. And the fact that he takes the time to mention this man, Ubayd ibn Nudayla, it's an inspiration for you and me. Every single one of you has a role to play in spreading knowledge. Every single one of you. Maybe you're not going to be the big YouTube sheikh with 1 million followers. That's okay. But everyone has a role to play. So by mentioning a lesser known reciter, it's as if Imam Dhahabi is saying, don't forget the contributions of the less famous people. For me, it's really like an attitude check. You know, like when I was younger, I only want to go to the masjid with a big imam. When Ramadan would come and I was in New York, Imam Suhaib is here? Oh my God, I got to go check out Imam Suhaib. He's in Brooklyn. I'm going to laugh my head off. It's going to be amazing. Right? And that's okay if you're a little kid. But as you get older, you just have to go to the knowledge wherever it is. So don't overlook the small names when it comes to knowledge. Here in New Jersey, we have so many, mashallah, beautiful shuyukh. We're not Dallas, but who cares about Dallas, right? I hate Dallas. Oh my God, I hate all my Dallas friends so much. You know, we're not Dallas, right? But mashallah, we have beautiful imams and scholars right here in our backyard that we can learn from. So take this methodology and this type of like psychology that Imam Dhahabi is trying to teach us here. Don't only go for the big names when it comes for knowledge. Don't forget you have adequate sources right near to you. Not just adequate, but really esteemed, beautiful sources. So explore all access points for knowledge. All of them. Everyone, even the smallest names, we're all holding on to this sacred rope of knowledge, trying to do our part. And every single one of you can do your part. So that's why this is, I think, worth mentioning here. Because it's not only about Ibn Mas'ud, but it's about the whole approach of knowledge, and that's really his legacy. His legacy is one of deep, deep, profound knowledge. When it comes to hadith, he narrates, you can find his name in Bukhari 85 times. You can find his name in Sahih Muslim 99 times, Sunan Abu Dawud 50, Tirmidhi 50, and Nasa'i 30, Ibn Majah 40, and the Muwatta of Imam Malik 2 times. Why only 2 times? In the Muwatta of Imam Malik? Why only 2 times? Where are the Malikis? He was in Kufa, exactly. Barakallahu feek. So Imam Malik was in Medina doing his thing with Ahlul Medina. Meanwhile, Ibn Mas'ud and his students are far off in Kufa, so it's not that easy to get a chain that way. Barakallahu feek. Excellent. Oops. Okay, let's come to his physical description. In terms of his physical description now, and again, I'm trying to do this in 2 ways, where we're learning about Ibn Mas'ud, but we're also taking steps, inshallah, to all become deeper students of knowledge. So Imam al-Dhahabi brings a quote from Qais ibn Abi Hazm. How much longer should we have? Give me the time. When should we end? 9:15? No problem. Qais ibn Abi Hazm is a tabi'een. He's 2nd generation. So right after the Sahaba, we have the tabi'een. So Qais ibn Abi Hazm, he died around 85 AH, and he's narrated in Bukhari and Muslim, and he's rated as thiqah. And in hadith literature, thiqah means reliable. Like anything he says, you can trust him. He's noble, he's trustworthy, he's got a good memory. He doesn't do like tadlis, he always quotes correctly. So Qais ibn Abi Hazm is a top tier hadith narrator. So Imam Dhahabi brings him to tell us the physical description of Abdullah ibn Mas'ud. So these books, sometimes you wonder, is it authentic? Are these just stories? No, it's coming through authentic chains. So Qais said, I saw him. So he met him directly. I saw Ibn Mas'ud, and he was of the complexion of Adam, alayhi salam, and he had a light beard, which means he had this color, right? Now, what does that mean, he was of the complexion of Adam? Let's go to another statement. We have a statement from another thiqah individual. Thiqah again means reliable, which is Ubaydullah ibn Abdullah ibn Utbah. And Ubaydullah, he is the nephew of Ibn Mas'ud. So again, with scholarly works like Imam Dhahabi and Sahih Bukhari, when they bring narrations, they're not bringing to you random stuff. This is not ChatGPT. They're bringing you the best, strongest, reliable, most meaningful sources they could possibly find. This is real work. It's not ChatGPT. That's why I wanted to have the book here with me. So his nephew, who's also thiqah, so it's not just OBK, he's family, we're going to trust him. He's a nephew and he's thiqah, he's reliable. He said Abdullah was a thin man, short in stature, intensely dark in complexion, and he did not dye his white hair. So now we know that Adam alayhi salam is dark-skinned. Done deal. So anyone ever had that question? Those are our sources right there. So he was a thin man, short in stature, intensely dark in complexion, and he did not dye his beard. Al-Qamar radiallahu anhu also said that, who's also his student, he said Abdullah resembled the Prophet ﷺ in his manner and his way. So we don't only have his physical description, but the way he carried himself on a daily basis. Hudhayfa radiallahu anhu also says the closest person in manner to the Prophet ﷺ was Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiallahu anhu. So we're going to stop there, inshallah ta'ala. Like I said, it'll just be part 1. But we wanted to really take the time to lay the foundation for who this man was, what are his titles, what are his accomplishments, and then we can start to get into what the Prophet ﷺ said about him, and then what he said himself. And I have tons and tons of quotes from Ibn Mas'ud that are so beautiful. Like these are quotes that are worth printing and putting up in your home, and posting them around your house. So inshallah ta'ala, perhaps at another time we'll continue with part 2. Jazakallah khair. I guess maybe just 1 minute for any questions or comments before we close. Yes, sir. I know, I thought about that as well. I have to think about that and talk to some more senior shuyukh. Because he was born in the year of the elephant. Yet the Prophet ﷺ called him ghulam. So was that just like a way of showing respect or showing like endearment? Yeah, I don't know. Oh, sorry. So the question the brother asked is something that actually I was puzzled with. So according to the reports, Abdullah ibn Masud was born the same year as the Prophet, the year of the elephant. However, when the Prophet stumbled upon him or found him, he said, Ya ghulam, oh young boy. So was he really the same age or was he younger? Allahu alam. I have to go double check that and see how the scholars reconcile that. I don't know. Sorry? So he was born in January and he was born in December? Do you do that to people that are born the same year as you? Oh, young boy? It was a leap year. No, good point. Jazakallah khair. Anything else? All right, Jazakallah khair. I'll see you guys next time, inshallah. Barakallahu feek. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.